Hello, this training is going to provide some detail into the OEM review and approval process for your environmental documents. This training was provided at the Florida Transportation Symposium of 2019. So here we have our project development and environmental study process. And over on the right, the time between the environmental document and LDCA is what this training is going to focus on, and how we go from having an environmental document to obtaining LDCA, and that is through the OEM review and approval process. Before we get started, here are a couple of resources that are available to you when you are navigating through the OEM review and approval process. First and foremost is the PD&E manual. Part 1 provides information on process and documentation, and Part 2 goes into more detail on specific environmental topics and analysis procedures. The PD&E manual is FDOT's procedure for complying with the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. Throughout the manual, there are sprinklings of the OEM review and document approval process, but another quick reference available to you is on the OEM website. There is actually a process map that goes through the OEM review process, starting with the district internal QA/QC of your documents, all the way up into OEM director approval, granting LDCA. We also have a process map that's specific for type 2 categorical exclusions. I will note that the OEM review and approval process is the same no matter what the class of action is. However, this type 2 map goes into greater detail on the roles and responsibilities of people that are involved with the OEM review process. Another resource that's always available to you is your project delivery coordinator. Every district is assigned at least one project delivery coordinator, and they are always available to answer any questions you have when you're navigating this process. Okay, so before we get started, I'm going to introduce a couple of players in the OEM review process game. I will note here that roles are fluid and can be handled differently in each district. For the purposes of this presentation, I'm going to assign roles and discuss responsibilities according to what is most commonly seen in the districts. If you find yourself in one of these roles, feel free to follow along with the character I've used to portray that role as I go through the document review and approval process. Keep in mind that the goal of this training is to develop a greater understanding of the process as a whole. So first up, we have our project editors. Project editors are typically consultants, but they could be district staff as well. They can create and edit documents, assign other editors and reviewers, and send documents for review in ERC and in SWEPT. Next up, we have our district reviewers. District environmental teams review the document and provide comments to the project editors. They consolidate any comments they've received from their subject matter experts in their team, and they coordinate the internal district QA/QC process of documents. Next up, we have our project managers. Project managers can be consultants and/or FDOT staff. They essentially have the same controls and responsibilities as the project editors, but their key role in the OEM review and approval process is to submit the draft document to the district environmental manager and project development manager for their approval. Which brings us to the district environmental manager and the project development manager. They can review and certify documents, and they also submit those documents to OEM for review and approval in SWEPT. So step 1 to getting your document approved is to prepare your document. This is where your project editors are going to come in. They're going to be pulling information from technical reports, the environmental screening tool, the PD&E manual, and any information from agency coordination, and they're going to actually build an environmental document. For the purposes of this training, we are going to go ahead and assume we're creating a type 2 categorical exclusion. There is a template in SWEPT for the type 2 CE, so you can input all your project-specific information, and SWEPT will populate a PDF of the environmental document that you can then send to OEM for review. And reevaluations also have a template in SWEPT, and they follow the same approval process, but they're not technically an environmental document. So for the purposes of this presentation, we are going to continue with the Type 2 CE. Step 2 is the district QA/QC. So once the environmental document has been created and the project editors feel it's ready to be reviewed, the document will undergo a district QA/QC review. So we'll bring in our district reviewers. This is your district environmental team. It's composed of environmental scientists, specialists, and other subject matter experts. They're going to provide comments on the draft environmental document that was put together by the project editor, consolidate comments from other subject matter experts who have reviewed the document, communicate comments and questions with OEM if and when necessary, and ensure that the project editors have addressed all the comments received from the district. Step 3 is the district certification. Once the district reviewers have agreed that the draft document is ready to be sent to OEM for review, they can tell the project editors to send the document directly to the project manager for district certification and submittal. So what we have on the screen is a screenshot of an approval history in SWEPT. You can find the approval history at the bottom of every project file page in SWEPT, as long as the review process has been started. You'll see over on the left, submittal type is initial in ERC. This is the first step in receiving LDCA and getting your document through the OEM review and approval process. So your project editors are going to review the document, and they are going to fill out an EDS form in SWEPT. EDS is an environmental document submittal form. Your first EDS form will be for initial review, as shown on the left in the red box. The EDS form is essentially a transmittal page that's attached to the environmental documents that helps us track where they are in the review process. So the EDS form, once filled out by the project editor, will be sent to the project manager. The project manager is going to review the document and make sure it looks good to them. And then they're going to approve the EDS form, which will then be sent to the district environmental manager. The district environmental manager will also review the document and certify that it's ready for OEM review. That will then send it to the project development manager, who will do the same thing. They will review, certify it's ready for OEM review, and submit it ultimately to OEM for approval. It's a best management practice that when the EDS form for initial review is certified and submitted in SWEPT, the district and project editors should also upload those documents that need review into ERC and assign the appropriate PDC and OEM engineer to the review. The comments due date in ERC should be 30 days from the day it was uploaded into ERC. So before we continue on, I'm going to introduce a couple of more people into the game here. First up, we have our project delivery coordinator and project development engineer. There's one project delivery coordinator, or PDC, assigned to every district, and some districts are also assigned a backup PDC. The PDCs review all documents to ensure they comply with environmental regulations in the PD&E manual. They coordinate comments from the OEM subject matter experts. They confirm all of your environmental document submittal forms in SWEPT. They facilitate the OEM approval process, and they're always available to answer any questions you have regarding your environmental documents. The project development engineer works hand in hand with the PDC. There's also one engineer assigned to every district. They make sure projects meet environmental and engineering requirements, and they will review all documents and provide comments to the PDC as well. Next up, we have our Office of General Counsel. There's two situations with reviewing, with legal reviewing environmental documents. The first is the general legal review. General legal review can be done on any environmental document, and it's usually as an on-requested basis. It's not required for all documents. So legal can request to be involved in a review. The district can request that legal review a document, or the PDC can request that legal review a document. We usually will have Office of General Counsel review higher classes of action, like an EA. EISs fall into the legal sufficiency category, which I'll get to next. But when you're in a general legal review, the Office of General Counsel will adhere to the same timelines as the project delivery coordinator and the rest of the OEM staff in terms of the review time. However, if legal sufficiency is required, and this is only required on EISs and projects with an individual 4F, if legal sufficiency is required for one of those two scenarios, there is a separate time for legal to review those documents outside of the OEM review time. So they will also have another functionality in SWEPT when legal sufficiency is required, where they will actually have to press a button to send the document forward to the director for his approval. And so when you're planning your projects, if it's an EIS or has an individual 4F, keep in mind that there will need to be some additional time for the OGC staff to review. Next up, we have our OEM administrators. The administrators review all documents and ultimately recommend them for approval by the OEM director. And the OEM director also reviews all documents and approves them, and this approval grants LDCA. So step 4 is the OEM initial review, or the ERC review. So remember, in step 3, the district had just certified and submitted the EDS form for initial review in SWEPT. This submittal will then show up in the PDC's queue in SWEPT. So we will bring in our PDC. And here's our approval history from SWEPT. The PDC is going to confirm the EDS form for initial review. They have a 14-day window from the time the document was submitted in SWEPT to approve it. It usually only takes 1 to 2 days. PDC is going to check that the correct EDS form has been submitted, that the documents have been uploaded into ERC to review, and that the SWEPT file is complete. Once they've confirmed that, they will go in SWEPT and confirm the EDS for initial review. This confirmation starts the 30-day review time clock. So anytime a PDC confirms something in SWEPT, it usually starts a clock. The initial review is 30 days. So your project development engineer and your PDC are going to review your environmental document. If general legal review was requested, OGC will also review the document. The team will send comments to the PDC and coordinate with the PDC, and the PDC will upload the comments to ERC within those 30 days for the district to address. The project editor is then able to grab those comments from ERC and go into SWEPT to revise the document. Once the project editor is done addressing those comments, they will return the revised drafts and any responses they have to the PDC. This is signified by PSM code 773 for type 2 categorical exclusions. Once the project editor returns the revised draft to the PDC, we enter what's called a comment resolution phase. And this is a 15-day period where the district and the project editors can go back and forth and coordinate with the PDC until both and all parties are happy with the changes made to the document and they all believe it's ready to move forward. Once everybody's happy with the document, the project editor can save the document in SWEPT, and your district environmental manager can approve the document with the changes that have been made. This is PSM code 774 for type 2 categorical exclusions, and that's the date that OEM and the district have completed comment resolution. So once comment resolution is completed, the PDC will let the district know that the document is ready for the next review phase, which brings us to step 5. This is the OEM administrator review. The PDC will instruct the district to submit the environmental document submittal form for administrator review or final approval. The project editor will then go into SWEPT and fill out the EDS form request for approval, which you can see here in the red box, is different from the submittal type before, which was initial or in ERC. The EDS form request for approval will then be sent to the project manager in a similar fashion as the initial review form did. The project manager will review and certify it's ready for approval. This will then be sent to the district environmental manager and SWEPT. The DEM will certify that they have reviewed the changes and believe it's ready for OEM approval. Once that's certified, it'll be sent to the project development manager, who will certify and submit it to OEM. Here we have the PDC. The PDC will again confirm that the EDS form for administrator review is ready. And as I mentioned before, once you have a PDC confirm something in SWEPT, it usually starts a clock. So this PDC confirmation starts a 25-day clock for the administrator review. We'll now bring in our OEM administrators. They're going to review the document, and if they have any comments, they are going to provide them to the PDC in SWEPT for them PDC to coordinate minor edits. The PDC will request minor edits in SWEPT, and you'll notice when minor edits are requested during the administrator review, the PDC will also set a deadline for the district to get those revisions back to OEM. And this is because, unlike in the initial review where you have a 30-day window to provide comments and then an additional comment resolution phase, all of the minor edits within the administrator review have to be completed within those 25 days. So the deadline allows the district some time to address those comments, but it also allows some time for the administrators to review the revisions and be sure that they're happy with the changes, all within that 25 days. Now, if more substantial edits are requested by the administrator and the district needs more time to address those comments, it's okay to remove the document from this approval process, take as much time as needed to make those revisions, and then pop it back into the approval process here at a later date. And that will be outside of the administrator review timeline. So for the sake of this presentation, let's go ahead and say that the edits were minor and the district could get them done within the designated time frame. So the project editor will go ahead in SWEPT, make those revisions, save it, and minor edits will be complete. At this point, you are ready for step 6 in the process, which is OEM approval and district certification. So the administrators have taken one last look to ensure they are happy with the document, and when they are, they will recommend the document for approval in SWEPT. You'll notice there are 2 recommendations for approval, and that's because there are 2 administrators, and both administrators will have to approve the document before it will be sent to the OEM director. The OEM director will then review the document and can provide additional comments, similar to how the administrators did. He can also request that the document be withdrawn from the approval process to address more substantial edits. But for the sake of this presentation, let's say that everyone did a really great job and the director is happy with the document and he can go ahead and approve that document in SWEPT. This is the approval that grants LDCA, and this is signified by PSM code 728 for type 2 categorical exclusions. At that point, the district environmental manager is able to go into SWEPT and issue the environmental certification. There may seem like there are a lot of players involved, steps in the process, and buttons to push in SWEPT. So let me leave you with 3 main takeaways to help you when you're making project schedules and sending documents through OEM review. The first thing to remember is that OEM initial review has a 30-day timeline. This does not include the comment resolution period, which occurs after that 30-day deadline and lasts until all parties involved are happy with the document. We typically like to schedule at least 15 days for comment resolution. This does not mean the PDC will always use the full 30 days, but they should be scheduled just in case it's needed. The OEM administrator review also takes 30 days. We have 25 days for the administrators and then an additional 5 days for the director review and approval. And minor edits that are requested during this time must be completed within that 25-day or 5-day window. And finally, if you have any questions while you're navigating the process, you can always reach out to your district's project delivery coordinator. Our job is to help facilitate this process and help you navigate through all the steps. So please never hesitate to reach out to your district's PDC. Thank you.